No legislative effect. Mr. Holden Chow's motion on addressing the excessive use of Internet and electronic screen products by children and adolescents. 3 members will move amendments to the motion. This council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendments. Later, I will first call upon Mr. Holden Chow to speak and move the motion. Then I will call upon Dr. Johnny NG, Mr. Michael Look, and Mr. Chen Kim-po to speak in sequence, but they may not move the amendments at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. I now call upon Mr. Holden Chow to speak and move the motion. Thank you, President. I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. I believe this motion is close to the heart of a lot of parents in society. They are worried that children are addicted to the Internet. Honestly, we are less worried when children are at school. A lot of primary schools give children homework and they allow children to use computers and mobile phones in a controlled manner. However, when children go back home, what do they use the mobile phones for? They usually play video games, play online games. This is a worrying phenomenon for parents. So I hope to put our minds together to address this issue. Let's take a look at the latest medical studies as well as other societal studies. If children and adolescents spend too much time online, what will the impacts be? In June this year, a report was issued for children aged between 6 and 10. The longer time they spend online, the more likely they have behavioral problems and emotional problems. The US, Canada, Australia, Holland, they all took part in this study. The University of Queensland professor said that children don't have a good self-control capability. Children want to go online in order not to lose touch with the reality. This will affect their social skills. If they lack physical activity, there will also be other problems, say weight, as well as other personal issues. If children spend too much time online and play video games, they will spend less time on studies and they will also have anxiety probably. They may go online to escape from the reality, and this will just end up in a vicious circle. Adolescents is a movie in the UK. This is a TV series featuring a 13-year-old adolescent or teenager. The adolescent was bullied in school. In the end, the protagonist killed a girl who was his classmate. We can see that this is a global phenomenon. Many children and adolescents spend too much time online. That's why we need to show care about this issue. We had a meeting in the Chung-hung district. We invited school heads to come together. We discussed this issue. By and large, the heads of primary, secondary schools and kindergartens said that this issue actually is related to how they handle the emotions of students. They need to put more resources into counseling and emotional support. That is why this situation needs to be addressed squarely. Now we understand where the problem lies, so what can we do? Let's draw reference from other jurisdictions around the world. Other countries issue guidelines. The World Health Organization, WHO, suggested that the government should draw up guidelines for those between 5 and 17 years old. They should spend about 2 hours on electronic screen products. The range is quite wide. My team has conducted a lot of research. We can see that quite a lot of countries or areas have drawn up guidelines. Some even do so by way of law. Say for South Korea, there is an order banning children from playing online games between 12 o'clock midnight and 6 a.m. In 2021, China implemented a policy for children below the age of 18. There is a real-name registration system. There is a 1-hour time limit for children to go online and play video games on weekends and on public holidays. It's come to my attention that some countries do so by way of law. Having said that, we have to factor in the actual circumstances in Hong Kong. Do we need to legislate in order to address the situation? I have some reservations. We need to consider the viability of law enforcement actions after legislation has been drawn up. In my opinion, it is better to enhance publicity as well as public education to address the situation. We have had similar discussions on this topic, but then it was dated back a decade or so. In 2013, the DOH set up the advisory group on health effects of use of internet and electronic screen products. The advisory group provided some guidelines. For those between the age of 2 and 5, they should spend less than 1 hour on electronic screen products. For those between the age of 6 and 12, they should spend less than 2 hours per day on electronic screen products. In other words, we do have some guidelines. But it's been some time since 2013. There have been changes. I think we do need to step up publicity and promotion. In my motion, I suggested stepping up efforts to publicize and promote the healthy use of the internet and electronic screen products. We have drawn reference from other countries. They launch campaigns to encourage members of the public to strike a balance. Take the UK as an example. There is a National Day of Unplugging every March. For 1 day, no one can use their electronic screen products for 24 hours. This will let teenagers know that they should focus more on physical activity, outdoor activity, as well as socializing. This will help young people or adolescents to have a better development as well as better mental health. UK digital detox campaign, France, has a similar campaign as well. They feature green elements into the campaign. The government has had very successful campaigns. Say we have Little Grape from the Security Bureau to guard against scammers. I can see Mr. Brave Chan nodding. This campaign is a very good mode of promotion. We should double down on efforts of public education. We need to let parents and children know that they need to strike a balance. We need to encourage children and adolescents to hammer home the message that the longer time they spend online, the more consequences there will be. President, I will listen to members to address the situation I shall submit.
係周浩鼎議員嘅議案。
And I propose a question to you that Mr. Holden Chow's motion be passed.
Dr. Johnny, excessive use of electronic screening products can give rise to many problems. The situation has been worrying. As mentioned, there's a TV series called Adolescents. It has sparked comments from around the world. In the TV series, a 13-year-old boy is suspected to have killed his classmate. Addiction to the internet can lead to young people getting lost, and this can become a crisis. Parents have been worried. Many surveys show that adults spending too much time on the screen can lead to impacts on their social skills, as well as can lead to emotional problems and sleep disruption. Many secondary school students in Hong Kong, they often have their phones with them, and electronic pacifiers is a common scene in Hong Kong. Years ago, I raised this question in this council. Well, the online world is very complicated. Children may get into different worlds through playing with their phones. If immature children are allowed to surf the cyber world, or it's like letting children play with different people on the streets, and they may be negatively influenced, they may be bullied, they may be subject to sexual violence even. So parents have the responsibility to not allow their children to use e-screening products excessively. We should do away with the culture of electronic pacifier. The Department of Health in 2018 updated the relevant guidelines on using screening products. For example, toddlers aged below 2, apart from talking with their parents using e-products, they should be refrained from using screening products. For those around 5, their screening time should be limited to 1 hour with the guidance of their parents. I think we should learn from other places. In the mainland, to avoid addiction on screening products for minors, they have to, through a real name registration system, browse the internet to limit the time spent on electronic products. And they have also set a limit. For example, in Australia last year, they have banned those aged below 16 to use social media. And back in 2011, in South Korea, there's a ban. Those aged below 16, from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., young people are not allowed to log into game websites. Otherwise, they may be imprisoned. And parents and guardians, they have to set screening time. And in Japan, there is also an anti-addiction policy stipulating that parents and schools have the responsibility to set limit on the time spent by young people on gaming online. We should have a dedicated organization or agency to regulate the use of tech products by young people. We should come up with a guideline for young people to use screening products. At the community level, parents as well as teachers, they should set examples for our children. For example, parents can come up with a timetable for using electronic screening products every day with their children, so that screening products are not only used for games or social media. There should also be digital literacy education for our students, so that they know how to distinguish false information online and prevent bullying. I think enterprises have the obligations to take into consideration users' health. For example, there could be a health mode to restrict screening time. There could also be a reminder function on social media platforms to remind users to take a break. There should also be collaboration between schools and enterprises to promote digital literacy education to help students make better use of tech devices. All in all, I support Mr. Holden CHOW's motion. I have a child of 6 years old. I think that we should create a healthy and more balanced environment for our next generation, so that technology can be a support for our young children but not a burden. Mr. Michael Look. I speak in support of Mr. Holden Chow's motion on addressing the excessive use of internet and electronic screen products by children and adolescents. In June, I raised a similar oral question. In the digital era, we have to learn how to use tablets as well as computers. Some parents, because of convenience sake, they use these electronic products as electronic pacifiers to pacify their children. And therefore, young children have been using electronic products more frequently, and this leads to eye problem and sleep disruption or excessive use and addiction. And this affects their social skills, and they become lonely. They may face depression problem and other mental issues. We should address the problem of excessive use of electronic screen products. The Department of Health recently published a health survey report for year 2023 and 24. 43.3 primary school students said that they use over 1 to 2 hours on internet, and for secondary students, they spend 80% of the time. For sight problems, we have over 53.8% of P6 students wearing glasses. Survey also shows that 11.8% of children in Hong Kong are addicted to the internet, and 36% of our students spend over 3 hours on the internet and on gaming. And this affects their academic performance and other interests. And the CUHK survey also shows that over 30% of our students, they play games for 5 hours in a row. And so 50% of students show moderate to serious depressive problems. And there has been a high suicidal rate too. And so we have to address the negative impacts brought by the internet and electronic screen products. In the mainland, there are rules. For example, there are modes for minors using the internet. And according to the relevant guidelines, those aged below 16, they cannot spend more than 1 hour of screen time. And for those aged between 16 and 18, not over 2 hours. And if it exceeds 30 minutes, there will be a reminder from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. No such services can be provided to minors. From 2014 to 18, there was a guideline published in Hong Kong, and it only suggests that those aged between 2 to 5, the screen time should be 1 hour. So there is room for improvement for the guidelines. Well, we have been exploring how to teach our children. I've commissioned local universities as well as research institutes to study how our children have been using the internet as well as e-screen products. I've asked them to collect information and come up with scientific definitions to see if there are any correlations between depression and suicidal rate and excessive use of the internet and e-screening products. I've asked them to come up with detailed analysis so that we can come up with measures to tackle the problems. That way we can come up with a high quality guidelines for parents and schools in Hong Kong. We want to have certain regulations in this regard. I also want to stress the importance of family education. Well, young people have very little time for their childhood. They have to take care of their school assignments, and as parents we have to guide them to take part in different group activities or social activities. There should be alternatives to online games. More importantly, we have to let our parents know that getting addicted to e-screening products can be harmful for young people. Myopia and depression cannot be recovered easily. Parents should set an example for their children. They should talk to their children and understand their inner world so that young people can feel spiritually satisfied through their family life, and this can help tackle problems of solitude or emptiness. Our young people is our future. We have to care about our young people. We have to come up with a guideline to guide young people how to use the internet and screen products. Mr. Cheng Kin Po. Thank you. I thank Mr. Holden Chow for moving this motion. In the digital era, screening products have become part of our lives, and they're also important tools for learning. Students in classrooms, they are exposed to different digital devices. If they use them appropriately, they can broaden their horizons and boost learning efficiency. Excessive use of the internet or electronic products can have a negative impact on children. According to a Harvard survey, the blue light can affect the emission of melatonin, and this can also lead to obesity as well as spine problems and eye conditions. A survey targeted 120,000 young people show that over 2 hours of screen time can lead to risk of depression, and longer the screen time, the higher the risk. Electronic screen products produce full sounds as well as pictures, and this limits young people's creativity. Toddlers, if they read books, they have to, through textual illustration and graphic illustration, come up with their own imagination and pictures. This helps boost creativity. A survey result released by the Department of Health shows that 43.3% of primary school students every day, they spend time on tablets and computers, and the time is as long as 2 hours or above. Compared to pre-COVID, it's an increase of 30%, and the percentage is as high as 80% for secondary students. Excessive use of e-screening products can lead to eye problems. For primary school students, students wearing glasses, the percentage increased from 11 to 12%. For P6 students, the percentage is as high as 53%. The Hong Kong Medical Academy, as well as the Social Welfare Department, has formed a group, and they recommend those aged between 6 and 12 to spend not more than 2 hours on e-screening products every day. For those aged between 12 and 18, they have to effectively manage their time. They should rest regularly to avoid using screening products too much. I think we need to tackle the problem. Therefore, my amendment suggests that the education sector should come up with a guideline for using electronic screen products. The screen time should be limited. The guideline should come up with a clear instruction on how long students should use the electronic products for. Schools should follow up by sticking to the guidelines. They may adjust the time limit based on their needs. For example, for applied science and AI, for these classes, there could be as high as 30% of screen time during classes. And for Chinese and music that require the less use of electronic products, we can spend fewer time on this. I think the Education Bureau should talk to the education sector about this. Also, I suggest that parents set an example for their children. Parents, when they interact with their children, they cannot focus because they look at their phones. Studies show that electronic products may be able to pacify toddlers aged below 2. However, long-term reliance on electronic products will cause an impact. So parents should limit the time of their children on using these products, and they have to come up with a timetable as well as the relevant rules for using e-products. For example, before meals as well as before sleep, children should refrain from using screen products. Only the whole family works together that the problem can be solved. Thank you.
Undersecretary for Health. President, I thank Mr. Holden CHOW for moving the motion on addressing the excessive use of internet and electronic screen products by children and adolescents. I also thank Mr. Johnny NG and Mr. Eric Yim, as well as Ms. Michael Look and Mr. Chung-hung Paul's amendments. Well, back in April, in answer to an oral question on the same topic, the DH stated that the government attaches great importance to the physical and mental health of children and adolescents. They also talk about enhancing stepping up. I thank Mr. Holden CHOW for moving the motion so that we are given another chance to explain to the public on how to properly use the internet and how important it is to have some sort of advice to children. Well, with the development of information and technology, there are a lot of chances for people to use screens. Say, for example, learning at school, using it on social media, as well as to play games. We are concerned about the excessive use of screen devices, as well as the internet, as well as the impact on children. However, we need to focus on what are we talking about? The use of the internet on games or multimedia. Today we have the representatives of the Education Bureau here to listen to members' views. First, I'd like to talk about the policy stance on screen time and the use of the internet. There were views saying that the government should legislate to ban or restrict the use of screen products by children. I would like to say that the mainland and other regions use guidelines to suggest the suitable screen time for children, but they do not use a legislation to ban or restrict the use of screen devices by children. Last year, the Australian government legislated to ban the use of social media platform by children under the age of 16. It is not a ban or restriction on the use of screen devices. So using legislation to regulate the use of the screen devices will need to be thoroughly considered. We need to consider public acceptance, how to regulate, how to enforce, as well as the operability of enforcement. Currently, the government doesn't have the plan to legislate. No matter what we do, we have to do it in moderation. Bureaus and departments are focused on healthy use of the internet and screen devices by students. On top of that, we promote diversified development activities for students. And these are our advices. Back in 2013, the Department of Health set up the Advisory Group on Health Effects of the Use of Internet and Electronic Screen Products, Advisory Group for short, comprising members from the DH Education Bureau, SWD, Hong Kong Academy of Medicine, academics, and NGOs. Having considered data of different health aspects, the advisory group said that excessive online and screen time causes obesity, problems with vision, hearing, psychosocial, and mental health. They have drawn reference from international guidelines and the local situation. In 2014, the advisory group promulgated a report on the excessive use of internet and electronic products. In 2015, the Department of Health has updated relevant guidelines, drawing reference from international guidelines. In terms of the appropriate use of the screen time, the advice are categorized into different age groups. Well, for children under 2 years old, they should avoid having any contact with screen devices unless for video chat under parents' guidance. Children from 2 to 5 are in the golden time of cognitive development and learning. Screen time should be limited to less than 1 hour a day. Screen time should be interactive and educational under the guidance of parents or teachers. 6 to 12 is an important phase for children before they enter puberty. Recreational screen time should be limited to less than 2 hours a day. Adolescents from 12 to 18 are becoming adults. They should learn good time management. They should avoid prolonged online and screen time. Mr. Johnny Ng's amendment talks about drawing reference from experience and guidelines of other places. As I said, the DH takes into account international guidelines when reviewing the health advice on screen time. In fact, the advice of the DH is similar to that of mainland Singapore, US, Australia, and other places. I would like to talk about digital pacifier. Just now, Mr. Johnny Ng and Mr. Michael Look talked about this topic. Before the age of 6, it is the golden period of development for young children. I'd like to talk about the impact of digital pacifiers. Many parents or carers allow toddlers to use screen devices for fun or learning, or use these devices to pacify their children. Screen devices are used as pacifiers to calm or reward toddlers. There is abundant medical researchers showing that excessive screen time for children, in particular young ones, have far-reaching implications on their health. The impact include sleep disruption, adverse impact on vision development, reduced physical activities, poor eating habits, and obesity. The impact on growth affects language and cognitive abilities, as well as the ability to concentrate. Moreover, some children not yet able to tell right from wrong may mirror the inappropriate content on the screen. On psychological and mental health, the adverse impact brought by digital pacifiers on children's social emotional development should not be neglected. If children rely on screen devices to avoid negative emotions or boredom, they lose the chance to learn to adjust and control emotions. This gives rise to more behavioral and emotional problems. In the long run, this weakens their ability to handle their emotions. This is not a short-term problem. It's about how they manage their emotions when they grow up. Parents know about potential problems of digital pacifiers, but they give in because they're too busy. I ask parents to use this period to interact with their children, to help them develop physically and mentally. This is very important to their future development on learning, thinking, and social skills. I'm now going to talk about the government's work on the promotion of the healthy use of the internet and screen devices. Mr. Michael Look's amendment mentions about conducting a survey on the use of internet and screen devices by children and adolescents. Just like what Mr. Johnny Ng said, the DH publishes the annual health report under the Student Health Service. They collect relevant data in a scientific and systematic way. The information provides main results of health checks service provided. The information includes screen time. According to the 2023-24 Student Health Service Annual Report published in April, the amount of recreational screen time of primary and secondary students has increased. But they did not tell us whether they're using it for entertainment or on games. The amount of time spent has increased by over 10%, which is higher than before the epidemic. Students told us that for a school day they spend more than 2 hours on recreational purpose, say for example to watch videos, to play games on computers, mobile phones, or tablets. Well, for secondary schools the percentage is even higher. Students are asked, in the past 7 days, if they have missed schools or missed important events because of screen time. For primary students, the percentage is 13%. For secondary school students, 6%. Excessive screen time has caused problems. We now see it. Healthcare professionals of the DH will provide information to help. If necessary, referrals will be made to specialist clinics or suitable organizations for further assessments and treatment. in the 2023-24 school year, for students who have gone through visual acuity tests, we found that 18.5% of them have failed the preliminary test, or because of other problems. Their cases will have to be further assessed by optometrists. The government has used a multi-pronged approach through different policies and measures to promote the healthy use of internet and screen devices. We target children, adolescents, parents, and teachers. The DH uses different channels, say for example, online talks, school visits, parents' workshops. They also make use of student health service and mother and child health centers to disseminate educational information on health, childcare, and parenting. The information includes the correct use of internet and screen devices. For children and adolescents, they need to use screen devices to learn. They need to take regular breaks. Please follow the 20-20-20 rule. That is, to take a 20-second break to view something at least 20 feet away for every 20 minutes of screen time. When they use screen devices to read, they need to apply the 30-40-50 principle. That is, keep a reading distance no less than 30 centimeters for smartphones, 40 centimeters for tablets, and 50 centimeters for computers to protect their eyes. The Education Bureau provides the information literacy for Hong Kong students learning framework for schools to strengthen information literacy learning elements in primary and secondary curricula. The view is to foster students' ability and attitude to use information and communication technology effectively and ethically. The Education Bureau also organizes continuing professional development courses for teachers. They are also provided with teaching resources to help teach students the healthy use of internet and electronic devices. Home and schools are important places where children learn and form healthy habits. School parent or cooperation is the key to foster the correct use. The Education Bureau published the Curriculum Framework on Parent Education. One of the key areas is on the promotion of healthy use of the internet, electronic devices, and social media. Every year, the Education Bureau, together with the Hong Kong Education City and the Committee on Homeschool Cooperation, organize a series of talks for parents. Experts and social workers are invited to provide important tips on how to handle internet obsession. There is also a one-stop parent education website, parent.edu.hk, to provide important information, including video clips and articles on correct use of electronic products, internet pitfalls, and how to handle internet obsession. All these are in line with what Mr. Chen suggested in his amendments. In addition to the correct use of internet and electronic devices, the Education Bureau and the DH also organize different activities to promote healthy development among students. In response to the WHO's recommendation of at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity physical activity daily for children and adolescents aged between 5 and 17 years, that is MVPA 60, the government, that is the Education Bureau, has incorporated this recommendation into the Physical Education Key Learning Area Curriculum Guide. The Education Bureau has been supporting schools to adopt a life-wide learning model to promote physical education. Curriculum guidelines, learning, teaching resources, and teacher training are also used to assist schools to implement diversified physical activities such as team sports. The Education Bureau has been collaborating with various school sports bodies to organize sports and dance competitions to give students a chance to take part, which serves to enhance their social skills and team spirits. All in all, we encourage the building of a disciplined, healthy lifestyle, arranging fun activities and moderate physical activities for children to keep them away from spending too much time on electronic devices. However, just like what Mr. Chen and Mr. Luk said, parents can be examples. Moderate use of the internet and and screen devices, leading a healthy lifestyle will have a direct impact on our younger generation so that they will learn from a young age how to form a healthy lifestyle habit. We'll continue to listen to members and before we make a concluding remark. Thank you.
Ms. Chen Yuming. Thank you, President. I speak in support of this motion on addressing the excessive use of internet and electronic screen products by children and adolescents. Using the internet and electronic products is the major trend around the world, but we need to have a change of mindset. iPhone 4 was announced in 2010. With unprecedented functions, it started the era of smartphones. Since then, there have been different brands, including mainland brands of smartphones for low-income earners living in remote areas in the mainland. They can now use smartphones as well, and these smartphones have been promoted to even the African market. Now, many parents are also addicted to using smartphones. So, on the issue of addiction among adolescents and children, we are helpless. Now, the mainland government already introduced measures to prevent gaming addiction. For example, the underage are subject to very stringent restrictions on user registration and logging in requirements for cyber gaming. Comparing to other places and even the mainland, the government's position in Hong Kong is to enhance social awareness. Now, I have some comments. In April this year, members asked an oral question about supervision over children's use of e-products and e-screen. According to the government's reply, the Department of Health is the department in charge. The health advice on using e-products and e-screen will be revamped on a regular basis. There are also social media publicity, public talks, and also workshops and seminars for parents and schools. But I think the Education Bureau should be more proactive in providing social guidance. A starting point is to educate schools and teachers. We can start with public schools. Guidance and training should be provided to teachers to enhance their capacity in intervening with children addicted to e-screen. Seminars should also be held to educate parents about their parenting skills so that a joint efforts can be made. The second observation is this. As far as the modern day education is concerned, we should provide guidance instead of just stirring conflicts with the younger generation. But likewise, we should not condone our children using e-screen excessively. There are tools on the internet that are really educational. For example, there are footages teaching children how to paint and teach them about history, science, etc. With the AI technology getting more and more mature, children can also leverage on the internet to learn new skills. The e-book is also rapidly developing in other countries and in the mainland. We also have audiobooks. The Hong Kong public libraries have e-book collections, but there aren't many relating to children's books. I encourage reading physical books, but at the same time, we should introduce other e-book platforms into Hong Kong, such as WeChat, e-books, and Himalayas, so as to encourage our young people and adults alike to make use of the e-book platforms. I so submit. Mr. Lau Meng Kwong, thank you, President. With technological advancements and the emergence of the internet, parents are now using gadgets as e-pacifiers in order to keep the children at bay. It's the e-tranquilizer. According to the Department of Health's annual health report, over 40% of primary students and 80% of secondary students spend more than 2 hours on using these gadgets for entertainment purposes. It shows that the addiction problem is serious. In the long run, it undermines their social skills. It also poses harm to their mental and physical well-being. About a decade ago, the government set up an advisory group that is an interdepartmental group to advise on the harmful effects of children and adolescents using the internet and e-screen. According to data, the problem is getting more serious. The government should not just stick to publicity. Something should be done. Now, about the mainland, stringent requirements are put in place. For example, for children below the age of 8, they must not use e-products for more than an hour. After 10 p.m., the minors are barred from using their phones to play games. Only on weekends will they be allowed to play for 1 hour. There are also other restrictions imposed on the use of smart devices. Now, this does not only happen in the mainland. There are similar restrictions in France, Australia, and even some European countries. Students are prohibited from using phones in school campuses. There are also age limits as to the use of social media platforms to prevent addiction. This measure can also prevent young people from having access to unhealthy information and messages on the internet. I think we can also likewise invite the smartphone gaming developers or social media platforms to develop a children's mode. For example, at night, restrictions can be imposed. No paid gaming advertisements, messages should be sent to children's accounts, and regular reports should be sent to parents so that they know about the usage of the internet by the children. The parents likewise should lead by example. At night, as parents, we should all put our phones away and spend more time with our children. The government should collaborate with schools and community organizations. Regular workshops should be held to explain the impact of gadgets on their children. We can also hold activities such as outdoor reading. There should also be talks about parenting skills to enhance communication. Now, taking the advice of the Department of Health, we can develop apps and other management platform tools so that parents can monitor the time their children spend on the internet and e-screen. At the same time, we can promote e-learning. As far as schools are concerned, we can take it further. More extracurricular activities should be held so that there is less time for the children to stare at the e-screens. That means the schools should promulgate guidelines on extracurricular activities for STEM activities, handcrafts, or uniform group activities to be held. This addiction will also affect young people in terms of their emotional control and social skills. They will lose the curiosity in the world and the empathy. For corporations, they should shoulder the corporate social responsibility. Parents should pay more attention to their children. Schools should provide diversified activities. The government should also enhance coordination to guide our young people in properly using the internet and e-screen. I so submit. Ms. Nixie Lam, I speak in support of the motion moved by Mr. Holden CHOW. Now I'd like to focus on the harm on on infants and toddlers. Now, the e-screen has become the e-pacifier for children. Very often in a restaurant, I see parents playing Baby Shark to the children so that the children can stay calm, staring at the screen during mealtime. They look focused, but then once this phone is switched off or taken away, they will start screaming, and they will even kick the furniture. And we must not ignore this fact. According to the survey in 2023, young children aged 3 spend an average 2.8 hours a day, and that exceeds the international standard. For grassroots, the usage rate is even higher, up by 2 times that from children from wealthier backgrounds. So we need to be clear about the harm on our young children. According to neuroscientists, for children staring at the screens for a prolonged period of time, the pressure on the frontal lobe is 15% more than that on other age groups. That means for the older for this generation, they are no longer as attentive. They have attention issues, emotional control issues. So I think we need to explain the figures. Before the age of 3, according to the Cambridge study, for more than 1 hour of screen time a day, they will have attention deficiency risks by the age of 7. That's 30% of children will have this condition. As you all know, we have tech companies meticulously designing the animations with a 60 FPS. That's frame per second. It's a way of stimulating the brains of children so that they secrete dopamine and get addicted. More importantly, according to the study in Korea, excessive use of e-products will cause children to be anxious and depressed, and as soon as they take their eyes off the screen, they start to exhibit some behavioral problems. And according to another association in the US, there is a warning for children below the age of 2. The risk of delay in language development and cognitive development will go up by 49%. So that's the golden period for children's development. We need to make sure that the 3 lines of defense are safeguarded. It's very important that we take the IT platforms to task. In other countries, legislation is put in place. In EU, according to the Digital Service Act, an anti-addiction regime is put in place. For children or content developed for children, they must not be played for more than 20 minutes. There will be an automatic break followed by a warning signal for parents. Likewise, we should tweak the algorithm to make sure that for the highly stimulating content, the focus is on educational videos. We have 70% of working parents in Hong Kong. Children are taken care of by elderly people. Now, we're not being too harsh on parents. We want people to start a family and raise children and work hard. So the important point is to invite the corporations, parents, and the government to work together and develop a new mode. Recently, the KMB set up a childcare center in the company. Childcare services are available to parents going to work. Children will not be left idle at home staring at the e-screen. So likewise, we can have a screen-free childcare program mobilizing the 18 districts.
Mr. Chen Siu-hong. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. Holden Chow's motion on addressing the excessive use of internet and electronic screen products by children and adolescents. I also support amendments. In this day and age, mobile phones and electronic screen products have become indispensable products in our life. In restaurants, many children and adolescents have their eyes glued to their e-products. They have a fun time watching cartoons as well as animes. On public transport, it's common to see children holding electronic devices, and these are digital pacifiers to them. When parents have a break, have they considered the consequences? Medical studies show that when children have exposure to electronic devices early, this will affect their mental health as well as their vision. University in Canada shows delayed development of the brain of children. Japan studies show if children spend more than 1 hour on electronic devices when they grow up and when they reach 2 years old, they will have delayed development when it comes to socializing as well as different body movement. In Singapore, there was a survey pointing out that when teenagers have overexposure to electronic devices, their mental health will be affected. If children have excessive use of electronic screen products by the age of 2, this will affect their learning capability and socializing. The consequences will be far-reaching. If children and adolescents spend too much time on tablets and laptops, this will also expose them to unhealthy information online. According to the WHO, children below the age of 2 should avoid using electronic screen products. For those between the age of 2 and 5, their time of using electronic screen products should be limited to within 1 hour. For school children, according to the Department of Health, it is suggested they should spend only 2 hours or less on electronic screen products. As for secondary school students, they should have breaks regularly in order that they can ease the strain on their eyes. They should also maintain suitable distances between their eyes and the computer devices. There should be a parent mode in order to protect children from excessive use of electronic screen products. I suggest the administration should draw up guidelines on the use of electronic screen products and the internet by children and adolescents. The administration should keep pace with the times and update the guidelines regularly. It is convenient to access different information on a mobile device. However, this will reduce the time of face-to-face communication. The administration should double down on efforts to promote healthy use of electronic devices. Parents shoulder a very important role when children cannot control themselves. Parents should encourage the children to put away their mobile phones as well as tablets. Parents should spend their time with children. For example, during meals, children shouldn't be allowed to use mobile phones. This will help children to form habits. Parents should spend more time communicating with children so that they will enjoy quality time. Parents should also encourage children to develop other habits apart from mobile phones, say board games, reading books, and so on. Parents should also set limits when it comes to the time spent on electronic screen products. This November, the National Games will be held. We should leverage on the momentum to organize different competitions and races. We will be able to ride on the wave of National Games to encourage young people to take part in more physical activities. I so submit. Thank you, President. Mr. Stanley Lee. Thank you, President. First of all, I thank Mr. Holden Chow for moving this motion. It's about addressing the excessive use of internet and electronic screen products by children and adolescents. We are discussing issues in relation to the development of society, and we do need to show more care about children and young people. The focus of the original motion moved by Mr. Holden Chow is address and excessive. These two keywords are important. When I took a look at this motion, I wonder why excessive. We should think, why excessive? I'm a father of two. Children need to use electronic products in different situations, probably for entertainment or for homework or for school purposes. Sometimes I ask children, do you really need to get your iPad and play on iPad? Well, they told me it's common to finish homework on iPad. How much time is spent on finishing homework on electronic screen products? Do we have any figures? Just now, some members already pointed out some studies show there are age-specific screen time requirements or screen time recommendations. But actually, when children need to spend more time to finish homework on electronic screen products, then definitely they will go beyond the suggested age-specific screen time recommendations. We need to think, what are the requirements? I understand these electronic products will help with teaching and learning. They are convenient tools. But we also need to cut down on the use of such electronic screen products. Even if children need to use these products, are there any ways to help them use them more healthily? And I'd like to focus on the word address. How many parents have a clear understanding of correct use or healthy use of electronic screen products? This has to do with promotion and publicity. Preschoolers, for children between the age of 2 and 5, primary school students, secondary school students, there are age-specific screen time recommendations online. But how many parents are aware of such guidelines and recommendations? We need to step up promotion. When children use these products, adults sometimes see a lot of advertisements, reminders, or alerts. When children use apps, such as mobile apps, there should be reminders given to children that you should take a break. You should let your eyes take a rest. Let's get back to the reality. Can we take our eyes away from the electronic screen products? I understand it's very difficult for us to do so. There is esports industry as well as the sports industry. When we cannot change our habits, we need to think how we can better help children. I just now commended Mr. Holden Chow for moving this motion in a timely manner. Let's draw reference from the statistics. A lot of school children, more school children have myopia. So we need to address this situation squarely. Of course, we need to work on different fronts. Education, schools, parents. Parents need to lead by example. We need to draw up guidelines for parents to follow. Then I believe the situation will improve. Of course, we want children to know that we want them to use these devices healthily. It is not the case that we don't allow them to use them. Thank you. I shall submit. I support the motion and the amendments. Mr. Tang Fei. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of Mr. Holden Chow's motion. On the 2nd of April in the Council, there was an oral question on regulating the use of electronic screen products by children and adolescents. I asked Professor Low, the Secretary for Health. He said electronic screen products are not limited to entertainment tools. They are used for educational purposes as well. But can the Health Bureau work with the Education Bureau to publish guidelines in relation to the use of electronic screen products for educational purposes? Time limits should be set in order to protect the vision health of school children. If we only rely on one single bureau or on schools alone, it is difficult to devise guidelines in accordance with CAP 279A, Section 7, or Part 7. There is reference to textbooks. However, there's no mention to mental health or the impact of internet or electronic products on mental health. We should factor in when the piece of legislation was enacted. For School Administrative Booklet, Section 3.5 is about student health matters. There isn't any reference to internet or electronic screen products. There's no mention of how these will impact on students as well as their health. There's no mention at all. It is not the case that the Education Bureau is falling behind the times. But then schools don't have the necessary expertise or authority to draw up such guidelines. When school children bring their mobile phones to school, they need to be locked up. When it comes to e-teaching or AI supplementary teaching, such devices are only limited to educational purposes. Students cannot use them for recreational purposes or just to chat with others. So how can we persuade parents so that they will regulate the use of phones or tablets at home? Schools lack expertise and authority. Adolescents are rebellious in their teenage period or during their puberty. This is a critical period for adolescents. Some countries ban the use of electronic screen products for students at this age. Of course, this will protect the vision of young people, and this will also help them stay away from unhealthy information or negative information. But then they may probably feel lonely in society, especially when their peers can use them whereas they cannot. Teenagers will also lose the ability to tell whether information is good or not. Let's go back to the TV series Adolescents. It tells us something about the values of young people as well as mental health. But then the ending of the TV series doesn't tell us how to make any improvements. It doesn't mention any solution. There's a lack of upstream theories or studies. So in the midstream and in the downstream, schools and parents will find it difficult to follow any guidelines if there is any. The HIAB, the Education Bureau, and the Advisory Board or Committee on Mental Health, we need to look into how to strike a balance between using electronic screen products and safeguarding health. There should be studies on youth psychology when it comes to the use of the internet. I so submit. Thank you, Deputy President.
Mr. Kenneth Lau. Mr. Deputy, I thank Mr. Holden CHOW for moving the motion. It gives us a chance to discuss about the excessive screen time of children and adolescents. In April this year, the Department of Health announced the annual health report. It mentions that 61% of students spend about 2 hours on any school day on screen devices for recreational use. primary schools 43.3% and secondary school students 89%. There are also studies showing that excessive screen time will have a negative impact on children's sleep patterns, learning, and psychological health. I asked the education sector to intervene as soon as possible. There should be clear guidelines set down. Parents themselves should be examples. They should reduce the use of screen devices. The DH updated the health advice in 2018. It says that for children under 2 years old should limit for those under the age of 5 should limit the screen time to less than 1 hour. Those between the age of 6 and 12 should have less than 2 hours a day. Screen devices are used as pacifiers. It may be a stopgap to pacify children, but in the long run, you lose more because there is more harm. There are recommendations saying that parents of children between the age of 2 and 8 should avoid using screen devices as a reward to children. The reward can come in the form of sweets or toys. For those between the age of 8 and 15, well, the screen time should be limited to within 2 hours. Parents should work out a timetable with their children on the daily routine. Children should be encouraged to draw or develop other hobbies. Those above the age of 12 should be taught how to manage time well. They may need to use screen devices, but still they need to take regular breaks. Parent and school cooperation is conducive to encouraging children and adolescents to use screen devices healthily. There can be talks, workshops organized for parents to help them get the children to follow the guidelines and to try to get the children to form a healthy habit of using screens. Schools can also teach students to use screen devices correctly. There should be more physical activities organized for them. There are suggestions that Hong Kong should draw reference from overseas jurisdictions that there will be a curfew on the ban of screen devices from, say, 10 p.m. onwards. Or there should be restrictions or ban on the ownership of screen devices by children. Even if we can successfully legislate for such a ban, it will be very difficult to implement. How can parents effectively monitor their children? It's a very complicated issue. You can put parental control on smartphones or computers to restrict the time and content of use, but it's still difficult because children and adolescents will find a way around it. The key is for parents to set an example. If parents themselves are glued to their screen devices, then the children will mirror this behavior. Children should get correct guidance so that they can correctly and healthily use screen devices. I speak in support of the motion and the amendments. Mr. Kisanyang. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Holden CHOW for moving the motion. It gives us the chance to talk about the use of internet and screen devices by children and adolescents. I have 2 children, one 3, one going to be 2. I understand that bringing up children is difficult. We all know that the use of screen devices is not good for children. It has an impact on their sleep patterns, on their ability to concentrate, as well as their social skills. But it's difficult in practice. Well, when they throw tantrums, when they refuse to eat, you can sing to them. You can try to get them to eat with toys. Nothing works. Nothing but screen devices. It's just like when children are glued to their mothers, but mothers will have to say cook. So the TV is turned on for the children to be occupied in the living room while they cook. We don't want our children to come into contact with screen devices too early, but it's very difficult. If you want to shield your child from screen devices when they are growing, it's difficult. Some parents may give children a smart watch for them to receive calls, but in secondary school you need to give them a smartphone so that they can keep in contact with their peers. But if it's not used properly, then they will be obsessed. The smart devices are used to watch games, video clips, and it's also used as a tool. A lot of schools use electronic digital teaching. Students are given a tablet or computers to use. That means children will have to learn with screen devices. I think we need to start addressing the issue from parents. Parents' actions are decisive. They need to guide their children to use screen devices in a moderate manner. Parents can watch clips with their children, limit screen time. At the same time, parents can stop their children from mirroring inappropriate content. And of course, there can be more interactive activities with the children so that they can be kept away from screens. Children will have to be taught to exercise discipline. We need to do more when it comes to parent education. Parent-schools cooperation should be encouraged. Educational programs should be produced on the issues of excessive use of screens. My iPhone Switch have limits on time. There can be a minor mode to restrict the time and content of the use of screens. Parents will get reports of the activities spent on these devices. The government can also roll out minor-friendly accreditation. Corporations can also produce products. This will enhance their image. Parents know that screen devices have a huge impact on children. However, it's very difficult for grassroots families to restrict the use of these devices on their children because they're too busy. A more practical approach is to restrict the screen time. We can use technology to achieve it. This is the right way to protect our children. I speak in support of the motion and the amendment. Ms. Chung-hung. Screen devices and the internet is part of the life of children. They grow up in the age of internet. They have enjoyed the convenience brought by the internet. At the same time, they are exposed to risks. Many medical researchers show that excessive and inappropriate use of internet will cause problems to their sleep patterns. It will also cause anxiety as well as other issues. It may also distort their values. I would like to focus on adolescents. The internet is an alternative space for them. Well, we used to have Facebook, now we have Instagram and Xiaohongshu. They are important platforms for them to seek recognition. A lot of people use different topics to draw attention. Some have become influencers. The internet has also broken down barriers in terms of access to knowledge. They watch clips and learn to play musical instruments or languages. But at the same time, some influencers have a negative impact on their viewers. Well, there was an incident in Hong Kong in which a 15-year-old who wanted to get famous damaged the tombstone of a famous person. In Japan, there was something similar. Some pranks have been videoed. There are also live streams resulting in accidents. These atrocious acts are packaged as cool acts. They want to attract click rates, which may be turned into revenue. These people have ignored morality for profits. Adolescents may lose interest, and they don't have any sense of satisfaction from achievement in real life. That's why they turn to virtual reality. Well, we can organize many different activities, say, for example, bazaars for young people. So to encourage young people to learn to run a business, they can work with others. In the process, their confidence will be boosted. We can also organize physical activities and games for young people. There can be youth leagues, adventures, outdoor adventures, and these are ways to train their resilience and boost their creativity, taking them away from virtual reality. Parents themselves can be examples. They should stay away from low-quality screen time. They should spend more time with their children. We can encourage parents and schools to work together. On specific days, students are encouraged to read, to go out to explore, so that they can enjoy quality green time. And there is also something that the government has been doing. Youngsters should be encouraged to take part in voluntary work. Through doing voluntary work, youngsters gain a sense of self. The internet is not a monster. The key is to learn to tame it and use it well. At the same time, we have to enrich our lives in reality. We need to help youngsters to find the balance. When we all work together, we can ensure that children can enjoy the profits and the convenience of the internet. At the same time, they will have a full life in reality.
Mr. Chen Pui-Leng. Thank you, Deputy President. Children and adolescents have been making excessive use of internet and electronic screen products. This is harmful to their mental and physical health. This also have negative impacts on their physical fitness as well as cognitive development. I have citizens seeking help from me, telling me that their children spend too much time and money on online games and they don't know what to do. Online game addiction is a concern. We have to, through legislation, regulate the screen time. However, we have to consider the public acceptability as well as how we can enforce the law. It's not easy for us to come up with a consensus. We have to ensure through public education, homeschool cooperation and family education ensure that the new generation makes use of the internet as well as screen devices properly. We have to help our children build a healthy lifestyle. According to members' amendments, we have to set a guideline to teach students how to use screen devices properly. In fact, in 2018, the Department of Health wrote out a guideline. It is an updated guideline to teach how people should use internet as well as screen devices healthily. However, the tips offered are too general. Well, we've experienced a few years of COVID, and we've seen changes in young people's usage patterns in screen devices. With AI education, students inevitably have to use screen devices. In future, we have to teach students how to use screen devices properly to help them to prevent addiction. Schools need to have a set of guidelines, and based on schools as well as students' conditions, schools should come up with their own guidelines as well. They should integrate technology with learning. There should be information literacy education. There should be diversified extracurricular activities to prevent students from focusing on using screen devices. There should be a mechanism to help schools follow up on students' use of screen devices. Now, in the digital era, a lot of parents make use of tablets as electronic pacifiers, and therefore our children from a very young age have been exposed to screen devices, and they are becoming more and more reliant on screen devices. A survey shows that the screen time of our children is proportionate to that of their parents. Parents sometimes confiscate their children's screen devices or even scold their children. I think family education is of paramount importance. Parents should lead by example. The government should encourage parents to use their screen devices properly and explain to their children about the negative impacts on excessive use of screen devices. Also, parents should come up with an agreement with their children in terms of what children can browse on the internet and their usage time to avoid conflicts. Well, technology brings convenience to human, and however, for parent-child relationship, I think it really depends on communication. Parents should accompany their children to play games and take part in family activities so that children won't be exposed to screen devices too early. If parents detect any traces of their children getting addicted to screen devices, they should refrain from adopting a hardline approach. Instead, they should communicate with their children or even seek professional help. I so submit I speak in support of Mr. Holden Chow's motion as well as other members' amendments. Mr. Brave Chen, thank you, Deputy President. I thank Mr. Holden Chow for the motion, and Dr. Johnny NG, Mr. Michael Luke, and Mr. Chen Paul for their amendments. President Xi Jinping said this: to ensure students' healthy mental development, to encourage them to pursue their dreams, we have to stick to an action plan to improve people's mental well-being. This is a strategy of our country. The chief executive also rolled out the whole school health program, and based on the conditions of each school, we have to formulate plans to improve students' diet as well as lifestyle to improve their mental well-being. Now, we have been talking from the perspectives of our parents, from adults. This is to show care for our next generation. Well, however, when we were little, our parents always asked us to not do this or not do that. We have all experienced this. There have been debates about this. The Department of Health published an annual health report. It shows that 80% of our secondary school students spend over 2 hours on their screen time every day. Well, we ourselves spend over 8 hours on screen devices every day. We are asking our children not to spend so much time on screen devices, but we ourselves are not doing this. I see 5 screen devices on Mr. Holden Chow's table. Well, this is very efficient, but how can we lead by example? We ask our children not to use screen devices so much, but this is not convincing. Also, our eyes are tired by using screen devices. Now, without computers, young people can't even find a job. Some other young people, without having graduated from university, they are able to earn $40,000 just by playing online games. Some of them even have started their own businesses. Well, Mr. Michael Luke also is very good at this. If we do not have the relevant skills, we won't be able to cope with the future. So we cannot simply just ask our children not to use screen devices. But I've talked to some school principals. They told me that in primary schools, teachers lock their students' phones. And secondary school level, they ask the students not to take out their smartphones. Well, without a smartphone, there is not much we can do. So I think from adolescents' perspectives, I think we should not simply ask them not to use screen devices. Can we adopt more innovative methods? For example, can we have a screen that will not cause eye problems? Also, can we ask our children not to stick to the screen and just to listen to the sounds? Let's try once in this council not to use screens during our council meetings. If it works, then it may work for our young people too. It will help us at least better understand our young people. For example, can we encourage our young people to be close to the nature and do more sports? Parents can tell their children to put away their phones and talk to them or bring them out for a walk. We should ensure that there are different things that our young people can do. Well, in order to do that, we have to set a good example. Let's, for example, put away our phones for at least half an hour and we go out with our children for a walk. Well, the young people are the masters of our society in the future. We should not just expect them to not use their phones. Instead, we have to understand them. Thank you. Ms. Elizabeth Kwok, Deputy President, I speak in support of Mr. Chow's motion. Young children and adolescents show excessive use of screen devices. This has to do with their mental health. Medical studies show that excessive screen time will lead to myopia, sleep disruption, poor social interactions, as well as difficulties with concentration and depression problems. Over the past 10 years, we see a 40% increase of myopia problem among primary school students. Now, in the interest of time, I wish to focus on the problem of digital pacifiers. Young children, when they cry, parents would give them their iPads or phones to distract them. For busy parents in Hong Kong, these digital pacifiers are like mufflers. Well, Scientific studies show that when children aged between 0 to 3, it is their golden time to develop their brain. So too much interaction with screens will affect students' language learning ability and social skills. Over-reliance on screen devices will cause emotional problems on the children's part. They may not be able to face their emotional distress or depressive problems if they look at the screen too much. Around the world, we've had France, Belgium, and Taiwan rolling out guidelines stating that toddlers aged between 0 to 3 should not be exposed to screen devices. The Ministry of Health in 2023 also launched a guideline stating that toddlers aged below 18 months should be prohibited from using screen devices for telecommunications. In 2021, in the mainland, a ban was imposed on minors to prevent their addiction on online games, and there was also a guideline to train up parents in terms of how they teach their children. In South Korea, young people aged below 16 during late night, they are not allowed to surf the internet. If there is excessive screen time, then family will have to pay extra tax to subsidize extracurricular activities. To prevent excessive use of screen products by young people, I think we have to first step up educational efforts. I agree that there should be a no electronic screen products day for students. It can be launched in shopping malls, for example. We can also learn from Singapore. There's a Screen Big project. Short videos were produced to reveal the negative impacts posed by digital pacifiers on parent-child relationship. Also, parents should lead by example. We can engage NGOs or social welfare organizations to teach parents how to find alternatives to digital pacifiers. Also, for new parents, we can distribute kits to them. We can distribute toys to them for their children. Now, we should also, at school level, step up or increase the number of quotas for students joining uniformed groups. We should also modify the design of play area in housing estates. There could be climbing walls or gardens for children. Screen devices cannot replace care from parents, cannot replace the smell of the nature. It can also not replace interactions with peers. Now, surfing the internet has become part of our day-to-day life, so it's impossible to ask our children not to use screen devices. While we strive to promote INT development, we have to concern the inequality brought by a digital divide. We, as well as the schools, have the responsibility to teach students to exercise self-discipline so that they don't get addicted to the internet and that they can grow happily. Thank you.
Mr. An Man-yu. Thank you, Deputy President. Digital gadgets are part of the everyday life of Hong Kong people. It's now an essential item. Many parents and children use e-products, and when children become emotional, the e-pacifiers will be given to the children. I have 2 children at home, and every day when I go home, my son will immediately ask me for the phone games. So I thank Mr. Holden CHOW for moving this motion so that we have an opportunity to discuss the issue. In recent years, studies have shown that excessive use of the internet and e-screen poses significant impact on the visual acuity and attention span of children and adolescents. According to the 2024 annual health report of the Department of Health, For the first time, a comprehensive survey was conducted covering 430,000 students. That's 70% since the COVID pandemic. According to the report, 43% of primary school students spend more than 2 hours staring at e-screen for entertainment purposes, and that figure was even more staggering, up to 80.9% among secondary school students. And this is a rising trend, and it is a worrying one. On mental health, a prolonged serving of the social media platforms may drive young people to doubt themselves, and there are increasing risks of anxiety, depression. And it also undermines attention spans as well as the academic performance of students. According to data of the Department of Health, 25% of secondary school students slept really late, and that causes physical health implications. 90% of students have eye problems. Now, optometrists have warned that e-pacifiers will also increase the chance of myopia among young children, and prolonged gaming or using of iPhones will increase the risk of obesity and joint pains. The use of instant messaging apps and social media platforms will undermine the cultivation of social skills in general. It also exacerbates alienation and problems with interpersonal relationships. Now, the government should set clear guidelines to help young people and children. More resources to be given to welfare organizations to provide counseling and addiction treatment service. Integrated family service centers should provide a consultation hotline and counseling support. The Education Bureau should incorporate the relevant elements into the healthy school policy so as to promote safe and healthy use of the internet, and also properly guide students in managing screen time. More activities to be held to boost students' confidence and social skills and reduce reliance on e-screens. On families, child-friendly activities should be held. Workshops can be held to help parents improve relationships and reduce reliance of their children's reliance on e-products. The preliminary visual acuity test should be included in the student health services of the Department of Health, and the 2020 rule should be strictly followed. Now, President, it is an imminent problem that we tackle the excessive use of internet and e-screen by children and adolescents through policy guidance, cooperation among families, schools and parents. An integrated policy should be rolled out to help young people build a positive way of lifestyle and proper use of gadgets and e-screens in the digital era for the sake of their physical and mental well-being. I so submit. Mr. Lai Tung-Kwok, I support Mr. Holden Chow's motion and the amendments moved by members. According to the annual health report published on 2023-24 published by the Department of Health, 18.5% of secondary and primary school students failed in the preliminary visual acuity test. Further assessment by an optometrist or referral to the student health services are required. And that accounted for 51,000 primary school students and 83,000 secondary students. 53.8% of primary 6 students wear glasses, and that shows how serious this visual acuity problem is. In 2018, a U.S. university in Ohio published a report. According to this report, the blue ray from screens would cause irreversible damage to our vision. In other words, excessive use of internet and electronic screen products is having a full impact on the visual health of children and adolescents. It also impacts on their psychological and well-being as well as learning ability. It poses a great challenge to families and the education sector. The government is responsible for taking proactive action to provide effective safeguards for the health of children and adolescents. In 2013, an advisory group was set up to gauge the impact on the use of internet and e-screen products among children and adolescents. Now, the advisory group published a report in 2014. Unfortunately, the recommendations were not fully implemented, and there was a lack of clear guidance on using e-screen. That accounts for the over-reliance on gadgets and this irreversible trend that we see now. We need effective control. Adolescents are getting more addicted to the internet. As far as families are concerned, we do not have effective tools or guidance to help parents monitor the use of screen by the children. Around the world, there are targeted measures. Hong Kong is lagging behind. Singapore is an example. They have promulgated a set of guidelines to promote healthy development. There are categorical restrictions to ban toddlers below the age of 18 months from using e-screens. Schools are also primary institutions are also covered. Now, starting from 2025, nationwide, mobile phones are banned in school campuses. In Australia, in 2021, they passed a Cybersecurity Act and an Online Safety Act requirements, requiring social media platforms to prohibit certain age groups to use the internet. And then it went further. The Online Safety Amendment Social Media Act was passed that for minors below the age of 16, they're banned from using social media platforms including TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. In Hong Kong, we have sporadic measures and health-related publicity efforts, but apart from those, we do not have an effective enforcement mechanism to cope with the present challenge. The government earlier indicated that there is no plan to enact legislation or set hard indicators to regulate the use of e-products by children and adolescents. Now, the eye problem among students in Hong Kong are so serious, it's really worrying. And yet the Education Bureau does not impose a hard rule to ban the use of mobile phones in school campuses. This is my suggestion. The Education Bureau should promulgate guidelines for schools to ban smartphones in schools. There should be promotion of healthy e-products for the education of toddlers. We should also help them manage their screen time better. Dr. Hui Simon Lee. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Holden CHOW for moving today's motion so that we can discuss the harm of using screen products by children and adolescents and how their visual health will be affected. Now, there are suggestions on legislation and regulation to tackle this issue. According to the Department of Health statistics, the rate of myopia among primary students increased in the past decade from 25% to 46%, and the figure jumped to 70% among secondary students. According to experts, prolonged staring at the screen would not only increase the chance of myopia, it may also trigger different eye conditions. It affects the development of the brain in general. Now, the Department of Health has promulgated guidelines on the use of e-screen, the breakdown by age. For example, for toddlers below the age of 2, they should avoid using e-products. For those 6 to 12 years old, they should limit their screen time to 2 hours. But in practice, the guidelines simply cannot be followed because they are not legally binding. They don't have the support of families and society. So I think that the government should take a very serious view towards this issue. Perhaps legislation should be enacted to solve the problem. The Department of Health's guidelines come with good intention, but there are problems with implementing the guidelines. For example, many families do not have effective parenting skills. They use gadgets as e-nannies. Some parents allow the children to use gadgets without restriction. So the government should consider enacting legislation. We should ban the use of e-screen by toddlers below the age of 3. That is the course taken by France back in 2018. For toddlers up to the age of 3, they are in a golden period of development. Premature exposure to screens may affect their social and language abilities. So likewise, we should enact legislation to ban kindergartens and nurseries from using e-devices. As for school children in the mainland, there are restrictions on cyber gaming, only 1 hour on weekdays. The government can follow suit for children below the age of 6. The screen time for entertainment should be limited, but we need parents and schools to cooperate. We should also take corporations into account. They should shoulder their corporate social responsibility. For example, we can legislate and require social media platforms and game developers to impose strict age verification systems such as facial recognition to ensure that minors cannot circumvent the control. For example, in the EU, there is the Digital Services Act. Now, the Education Bureau should formulate guidelines restricting the use of screens in teaching and learning. For example, not more than 30% of class hours to make sure that the blackboard remains the main medium. In terms of teaching materials, teachers should not rely too much on videos, clips, or PPT. Another important point is to follow the golden rule, that is 20-20-20. After staring at the screen for 20 minutes at a distance of 20 feet, you should take a 20-second break. For children and adolescents, visual health is of utmost importance. There are lifelong impacts. The government should legislate and draw a line. Corporations should be taken to account. There should be restrictions on for minors to use e-screens. We should avoid over-reliance. We need the help of schools and parents. So I say that we legislate in order to achieve these objectives. It's only right for a government to protect minors in the course of development. I so submit.
Professor William Wong. Thank you, Deputy President. The term digital pacifiers appear quite often in recent years. They are also seen in real life, whether in eateries, on public transport, or on the streets. We can see parents letting their children use their mobile phones and tablets. These are electronic screen products. There are quite significant ramifications of using electronic screen products, especially for teenagers, young people, and children. Quite many studies have shown excessive use of these electronic screen products will affect the linguistic faculty of children. Their muscle development will also be affected. Emotions, vision, sleep quality will also be affected, or even social skills will also be undermined. Parents unaware of the long-term implications of digital pacifiers. Parents use digital pacifiers to keep their children from disturbing them while they are working. But when there is a problem, it's actually all too late to remedy the situation. For the sake of the healthy growth of our younger generations, the government needs to hammer home the implications of digital pacifiers. In the past, the education sector focused on development on 5 different fronts. Now we need to promote the coordinated development of 5 different areas or virtuals. Schools should organize more physical activities And children should also be encouraged to join uniform groups. They cannot go online for a prolonged period. They need to interact with people, mingle with their peers in reality. They need to learn how to improve their interpersonal skills. However, when young people are addicted to video gaming or the internet, there should be more support and intervention on the part of parents, counselors, as well as social workers. They should work together to help young people to wean off their habits. Mr. Holden CHOW mentioned stepping up efforts to publicize and promote the healthy use of the internet and electronic screen products. This is worth our support. The other two amendments are about setting screen use guidelines. That is right. But we are now in the middle of an era of AI, artificial intelligence. Whether at work or at school, it is unavoidable that we have to use our computers or electronic screen products. That's why we need to plan ahead for the future. That is how we exist with such electronic screen products. Apart from recreational purposes, how can we turn these electronic screen products into tools that help young people grow and help them develop? This is exactly what the education sector needs to address. The Education Bureau also attaches a lot of importance to this issue. Guidelines and policies have been drawn up. Guidelines are provided to young people to help them to make better use of the internet and electronic screen products, so they won't rely fully on AI and the internet. This way, they will become slaves to these tools. I support the motion and I support the amendments. Thank you, Deputy President. Ms. Connie Lam. Thank you, Deputy President. I support Mr. Holden CHOW's motion on addressing the excessive use of internet and electronic screen products by children and adolescents. Electronic screen products have become indispensable tools for us in this day and age. Children are addicted to short videos as well as games. This will not only affect the vision of children, and this will also affect their emotions. They may throw a tantrum whenever they cannot get a mobile device. We need to improve the digital literacy among students. They need to keep being exposed to different types of electronic products. That's why we need to strike a balance. We need to help young people to make good use of these tools without getting addicted. According to the Student Health Service annual health report, 43.3% of surveyed school children said that they spend at least 2 hours on these electronic screen products, up by 30% from the pandemic. For secondary school students, the figure was even over 80%. The thrills of using these products will make more people or children get addicted to these tools, and there will also be more people suffering from myopia. Cutting down on the use of electronic screen products isn't just about turning these devices on or off. It's about a motive of using these tools as well as social development. I don't think the government should directly step in, but then the government should provide more support in relation to family education. Macau organized an activity on AI as well as liberal studies. It is expected that there will be 30 sessions of AI popular science activities. AI education will be incorporated into the curricula of secondary and primary schools. Through popular science activities, we may let students and children know these electronic products may come in very handy when they are used to good effect. This will enlighten them in a positive manner. In the amendment, it is mentioned that the Education Bureau and schools may formulate appropriate guidelines on the use of electronic screen products. This will fill the gap in the existing policies. There will be standardized guidelines. For example, there should be appropriate targets or guidelines according to different forms and teaching targets. I suggest having screen time limits as well as the frequency of rests or breaks. Parents and schools are gatekeepers. They need to control the time their children spend on electronic screen products. The government needs to provide support if need be. For instance, teachers should be trained to become digital health tutors. Hotlines and online platforms should be set up to provide counseling and inquiry services. There should also be integration of medical and social resources to help students or children who are seriously addicted to video games or electronic products. I believe it is worth our efforts to organize no electronic screen products day for students, or we may even cover all members of the public in Hong Kong, not just students. We need to promote this atmosphere in society. We shouldn't spend our days glued to electronic products. We need to embrace nature. We need to spend time with families. Parents should lead by example. They should put away their mobile phones and enjoy their time with their children. This way, they will improve their family relationships with children. This will also help children to form good digital habits. Thank you, Deputy President. Mr. Michael Lee. Thank you, Deputy President. Recently, I watched a video when someone is lining up. He or she looks at a transparent mobile device. It is just a transparent board without any screen, camera lens, or chip. It is similar to a mobile phone. When you hold it, it is like you are holding a mobile phone. In other words, this is not an electronic product. It is a tool to help you wean yourself off the habit of holding a mobile phone. The excessive use of internet and electronic screen products will pose physical, psychological, and mental health risks to children. For children between 2 and 3, the static screen time should not go over 1 hour. For those below the age of 2, they should refrain completely from using any electronic products. In society nowadays, however, the situation is different. Over 60% of students spend more than 2 hours on electronic products. This is a worrying phenomenon. Excessive use of electronic products will affect the ability for children to express themselves. Young people are reliant on emojis, say a laugh cry emoji, or even abbreviations, IDK meaning I don't know. There are also Chinese chic words. These are convenient buzzwords for children and young people, but then over time it'd be difficult for them to express themselves. Children and young people spend too much time online. This will affect their socializing skills when they spend more time on e-devices. Take my nephew as an example. This has affected him as well. Close to 30% of students have emotional issues. This means it affects their psychological and mental health. In other words, face-to-face communication cannot be replaced by screen time. Prolonged use of internet will also affect young people when it comes to their mindset. The technologies of AI, Google, ChatGPT affect children and young people. Nowadays, they search on Google. They simply rely on translation tools. They don't even consult a dictionary. This affects their personal development. In the face of complicated social issues, young people will lack the ability to address these issues. So I support Mr. Holden Chow's suggestion of organizing a no electronic screen products day for students and other large-scale publicity activities. I believe this will enhance public concerns. We need to make full use of social resources as well as social media. Then more people will take part in these events so that we can develop or we can create better vibes in the community. NGOs should also work the government should work with NGOs to organize different social activities so that students will partake in more activities such as physical activities whereby they can have better interpersonal relationships. Young people lack face-to-face communication. If we organize such events or activities, we may improve the situation. There will be a better team building spirit and activities. The government should also enhance regulation to keep young people away from negative information. There should be more regulation over social media platforms so that young people will not be exposed to unhealthy or negative information. Parents should also teach young people about how to use the internet. This will better protect the mental health and psychological health of students. Fire may be a servant, but may also be a master. We need to lead young people to correctly use the internet and electronic screen products. Then they can enjoy the convenience of such tools, but they can also grow in a healthy manner. I support the motion. Thank you.
Dr. Dick Chi Yun. Parents complain that their children spend too much time on games. They commented that the children are having bad moods. Well, when there are problems with children, it means there are problems with parents. Children escape to virtual reality because they don't get a sense of achievement, happiness, or belonging. But there is a crisis when it comes to parent education. According to a survey, parents spend 1 hour on screens. The children will spend 2 hours on screens. Parents are examples. If they pick up the phone after work, children will think that is the right way to relax. Relationship between parent and children will be superficial. When a family fails to provide psychological comfort, children will turn to the internet. Now that at schools there is a structural problem. Children at schools have deprived children of time to play. Schools think that it is better to spend time on training children. According to a US study, children with no time to play will suffer from anxiety, deficiency in ability to concentrate. When children lose the chance to play, they lose the chance to be creative. They turn to the virtual world to get a sense of achievement. Only the elite can achieve a sense of belonging and satisfaction in reality, but in the virtual world, everyone can be a champion. A former president of Facebook said that the design of social media is to get people to be addicted. There are experts engaged to maximize the time spent on the social media. The social media is to give users a sense of satisfaction. In addition, if you're required to pay, that means you rely on your parents to fund it. According to a study, children spend at least 2 hours a day on screens. Steve Jobs himself restricted his children's use on screen devices. creators of screen devices and social media restrict the times of their children spent on screens. So you can get an idea what it's like. There are various bans in different countries. In Australia, if you're under the age of 16, you are banned from using social media. In France, there is a ban on the use of mobile phones at schools. Result is that there is an improvement in the children's development. We need to rebuild the support network of parent education. Parent education should focus on quality time with your children. There can be workshops, seminars, discussion groups to encourage parents to spend more time with their children. Another issue is the excessively long working hours of parents. We should change our culture so that parents can have quality time with their children. In addition, there needs to be a structural reform in our education system. Too much time is spent on examinations. We need an overhaul to give more time for students to play. Time should be allocated for parents to strengthen their relationship with their children. There needs to be regulation for internet security. Companies should bear the responsibility to ensure that the content is correct and that children don't need to pay to play these games. We need to work together to create a healthy environment for our children to grow in. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. There is excessive use of the internet and screen devices by our children and adolescents. If we don't put a stop to it, it will have far-reaching implications. When we were young, we played football, we played chess, or play games with other children. But now, children just use their tablets, smartphones, even during meal times. That's the same for secondary, primary students. These are digital pacifiers. There is a negative impact on their physical and mental health. There are long-term implications on their development as well. In April, the Department of Health publishes an annual health report. The report says that over 40% of primary students spend about 2 hours on screens. Secondary school, over 80%. A lot of secondary students are addicted to the internet. They are glued to their phones, always playing games. There are studies by the CHOW and the Hong Kong U saying that excessive screen time will damage one's eyesight. It will cause a sleep disruption. International studies show that excessive use of social media will have a negative impact on the emotions of youngsters. Parents and schools try to restrict screen time, but to no avail. A lot of students, when they go home, they continue to look at their screens. There should be more publicity to promote healthy use of electronic products, electronic devices. The government has at one point launched a guideline for the correct use of screen devices, but the last update was 2018. Technology has changed. The world's completely different. If the guideline is not updated, then it will be obsolete. It's high time that the guideline be updated. There should be enhanced publicity to draw the attention of parents on the problems of excessive screen time. Say, for example, there can be large-scale publicity campaign. There can be seminars and talks at schools drawing their parents' attention to this issue. The Education Bureau and departments can also organize more parent-child activities. Parents are encouraged to bring their children to take part in different events. Say, for example, social events, musical events. There should be more choices for youngsters. We can draw reference from overseas jurisdictions. Say, in Australia, there is legislation to ban the use of social media for those under the age of 16. We need to put in place more stringent guidelines. Faced with the issue of excessive screen time by children and adolescents, we should lose no time to take action. It involves a behavioral change. It is something that will affect our future generation. It's a public health crisis. Well, there's a growing rate of myopia. There is a negative impact on psychological and health development. We need to have a comprehensive approach. We need to update the guidelines. We have to organize more activities. The key is not to ban technology, but to teach our younger generation on how to coexist with technology. This is not just the duty of the government. We need the involvement of society, schools, and parents. I urge the government to tackle this issue seriously. More resources should be devoted to handle it so that our younger generation can grow up healthily. Ms. Lillian Kwok, thank you. I thank Mr. Holden Chow for moving the motion on addressing the excessive use of internet and screen devices by children and adolescents. This group is our future. We need to protect them to ensure that they will grow up happily and healthily. Last year, there was a survey on scoliosis. From primary students to secondary 1 students, there was a screening exercise for scoliosis. Training is given to students. It shows that about 16% of students suffer from scoliosis, and then there was a further assessment. Some students need treatment and follow-up. Excessive use of internet and screen products will worsen scoliosis, and there will also be more serious illnesses related to the spine. I think that these are serious issues with far-reaching implications. We need to prevent the worsening of the situation. We need to provide treatment. However, parents and students don't know the risk. So apart from the work in place, we have to step up publicity about scoliosis. Say, for example, for students, teachers, and schools, that there should be more talks on scoliosis. In terms of mental and psychological health of students, as we all know that it is the young age, is the formative years. It's a time for children to learn to manage their emotions. A lot of youngsters and children love the use of screen devices. Some are even obsessed with it. This stifles the healthy development of social skills, and it also causes isolation, loneliness, and anxiety. It's a vicious cycle, and there is aggravating results. So the government needs to promote sports. Apart from traditional sports events, there can be new sports events. In addition, schools can also organize new events to encourage students to participate and to build a healthy lifestyle. In mainland China, there is an act that aims to promote the healthy growth of children on different areas, as say lifestyle, psychological health. Parents should be an example. They should refrain from using screen devices, and they should also show They should also pay more attention to the children to avoid the excessive use of screen devices. We don't want that to affect children's daily activity. It's inevitable that screen devices and the internet is used. It's part of our lives. I think we need to work on different aspects. We can teach children about technology literacy. We also need to build correct values, say for example, good time management. We don't want the use of technology to have a negative impact on children. We are now faced with the AI age. It can help us or destroy us. So we need to learn to coexist with electronic devices. Using them correctly can enhance children's learning. It will help with grooming talents. So we should not stop children from using screen devices. However, we have to ensure that they know how to use these devices correctly. While we embrace the AI age, we have to think about our technology literacy to ensure that technology will not harm our children. I so submit. Thank you.
議員。
Mr. Sunny Tang. Thank you, Deputy President. As a father, I have very strong feeling about this motion. The problems pointed out from this motion are challenges faced by many families every day. Studies have shown that excessively long screen time has negative impacts on children's mental health. With AI, we have been encouraging our children to embrace technology. This love-hate relationship for screen devices have posed difficulties to our parents. We have to, in a very smart way, guide our next generation. Different sectors of our society have to work together to bring parents out of this quagmire. I have the following 3 suggestions. The Department of Health last updated its guideline on the use of screen devices in 2018. It's been 6 years. If our knowledge stayed at 6 years ago, it's like we are using an old map to navigate this new digital world. This is not going to help us cope with the challenges. I suggest that the government conducts a new round of survey based on the latest scientific evidence. The government should formulate a new set of guidelines for parents and schools. Now, many schools have asked students to submit assignments online. I hope there could be more clear guidelines for digital assignments. While we promote technology in education, physical assignments should be kept. We have to restrict students' use of screen devices to maintain a healthy balance for them. Also, many social media platforms, they make use of people's psychology as well as algorithms to catch people's attention. For adolescents who are not mentally mature yet, they are hard to resist these designs. I suggest that the government work with the tech sector as well as psychologists and parents, so to encourage the protection of privacy. Also, there should be anti-addiction features. There should also be commendation schemes to praise enterprises that have been doing a good job in protecting adolescents. Thirdly, many parents are busy with work, and so screen devices have become parents' digital pacifiers for their children. Grassroots families cannot afford expensive interest classes, and public facilities for recreational activities are hard to book, and so screen devices have become digital pacifiers. the government should allocate more resources to promote sports development among children. For example, there should be free admission to sports facilities for children, and more venues should be opened up for the community to organize sports activities. The government has been promoting mega events as well as tourism. I think we should seize the opportunity to incorporate family elements into mega events. For example, there could be world-class parent-child events or carnivals. There could be outdoor exploratory arts events. There should also be children-friendly or family-friendly activities to encourage family to take part in these events together. Well, to tackle this challenge, we have to work together. We need a top-level policy and design from the government. We have to take up the responsibility, and together we should create a more enriching world for our young children. Thank you. Ms. Eunice Yong, I speak in support of Mr. Holden Chow's motion on addressing the excessive use of internet and e-screen products by children and adolescents. I love and hate this motion. Well, we've been talking about regulating children's use of screen devices, but look at us adults. We spend over 10 hours on our smartphones every day. Can we do away with screen devices? That's impossible. Well, the government has been rolling out measures. For example, under the Department of Health, there is a guideline on how to use screen devices and the internet healthily, but the last update was some 10 years ago. Well, there is guideline for young children, for example, those aged below 2 and those aged between 2 to 5, in terms of the amount of screen time for different age groups. Well, for some children, you restrict the screen time to 2 hours. Well, just by spending on, for example, AI-related technology or tools, I spend over 2 hours. Now, technologies have been developing by leaps and bounds. We all know the harmful effects of screen devices on our eyes, but even if I am aware of that, I still use screen devices. For example, during COVID, parents have to accompany their children to use screen devices for at least 3 to 2 hours a day. Well, now it's after COVID. Can we reduce the screen time back to 2 hours? That's impossible. In primary and secondary schools in Hong Kong, electronic versions of textbooks are used. There are also short videos played in classes. So, can we eliminate screen devices completely? Can we restrict children's screen time to 3 to 2 hours? Well, we know that there are often conflicts between parents and children because parents push their children to switch off the screen devices, and they've been finding it hard to do so. This is because they're all glued to their screen devices. So how can we encourage people to use e-gadgets less? I think our children have been very tired of hearing this. Well, we can educate our children on one hand. On the other hand, we have children spending time on social media and playing online games. Can we come up with a guideline for using social media? Well, I think that's doable. Indeed, many schools nowadays have asked their students not to bring their smartphones to schools. So this can be taken care of. Now, after students return home, well, even little children, they know how to use e-gadgets. With the change in trends, I think smartphones and computers are indispensable. There are no alternatives. Unless we say wait for 10 years and we have robots to accompany us, then we probably don't need to stick to the screen and keep scrolling on our phones. But we're not there yet. When children get home, I think by giving your phones to them, well, they may stay home and not go outside and meet bad people. I think parents can think of ways to tackle this. They may project images of screen devices onto a bigger screen or on the TV so that it won't cause serious eye problems on their children. So we need to help family build a good relationship. We need to ensure that parents do not suffer from excessive pressure and at the same time protect their children from spinal problems or eye conditions. I know that the government has not updated its guideline on this for some 10 years. So please do listen to our views and see how we can offer support to parents. Mr. Adrian Ho. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of Mr. Holden Chow's motion. I very much agree with what Ms. Eunice Young said. I love and hate this motion as well. From this motion, I recall what my mom used to tell me when I was little. She asked me not to watch so much TV. But times have changed. From a TV generation, we have switched to a digital era. Everyone has a smartphone nowadays. When I was little, I could only watch TV after school. At least I had to finish my homework before watching TV. Now, in this era, we are looking at the excessive time spent on internet and screen devices. What does it mean by excessive? Well, excessive time spent on screen devices is harmful to our eyes. Myopia among young people have gotten worse. Also, screen devices have serious implications on people's cognitive development and social skills. I attended a dinner recently, and the young children there for the entire dinner was glued to their phones. If it was in the past, if it was me, I would be beaten up by my parents. So screen devices affect people-to-people relationship. Now this motion is very positive because it encourages young people to take part in extracurricular activities or sports activities. It asks children not to watch so much TV, especially YouTube. I agree that sports can help us because it helps our brain release dopamine, and it helps mitigate depressive symptoms and emotional distress. It can also help us memorize things better. Let me share with you one example. Even with busy work, every week I have 4 classes of weightlifting. This helps reduce stress. So I suggest that schools enhance its physical education curriculum so that students can take part in sports more actively. I think there should be a no electronic screen products day for students. Let's see what happens if we launch this campaign. Let's see what would happen if students do not look at their screen products at all for a day. We need to collect information to offer students alternatives. We have to let them experience what it is like to live without e-gadgets. Well, we grew up in this era and we're still surviving well. So we have to encourage our students to explore their interests and rely less on e-gadgets. Now, students' mental health has to do with their family environment. Students with poor mental well-being and poor family relationship, they tend to rely on the internet to escape from the reality. there is something called problematic internet use. There is also something called doom scrolling. There are people who keep browsing information on the internet without any positive impact, and this leads to depression and anxiety. This kind of social media culture will cause self-underestimation among young people. There are also risks in relation to security. And this also affects students' concentration as well as academic performances. So I hope our government would launch studies as soon as possible, as well as consultation, and based on the actual circumstances, come up with a scientific-based guideline and code of conduct. Thank you.
Reverend Peter Kuhn, President. Smartphones, tablets, these kinds of gadgets have become part of our everyday life. Whilst they bring us great convenience, they also become the cause of many social problems. Many parents, as I observe, would give their phones to the children to watch YouTube in order to pacify them. This kind of pacifiers becomes the perfect tool. It's a lifeline for parents to pacify their children. Our next generation is so obsessed with the internet. They are using the mobile phones obsessively. And as a result, these gadgets and the screen time are eating away the well-being of our children. And I must not just be a bystander. We must look at the issue squarely. According to a number of surveys, excessive use of e-screen would have impact on the physical and mental well-being of children and adolescents. It will also exacerbate family conflicts. Their well-being, the social skills will be adversely impacted. The advisory group was set up in 2013 by the Department of Health. In 2018, the health guidelines, health advice was updated. However, according to many parents and schools, they continued to feel helpless. I think it has to do with a passive approach in the policy formulation process, or the lack of data support. Now, President, in face of this daunting challenge, we cannot just rely on families and schools themselves. The government should be more proactive in tackling the issue. The government should step up its efforts in collecting statistics on screen time. Regular publications should be made so that we can have a full insight of the seriousness of the problem. The government should also draw reference from the experience of other places or countries. The government can, for example, develop or subsidize the development of a parent supervision system so that parents can monitor the use of e-screens after school for free. And as for the next step, government should subsidize schools to roll out courses and activities to train parents on safe use of e-products. We should also help parents learn more about the technologies, and we can help them guide their children to cultivate good use habits. Now, to tackle addiction, the government should also leverage district organizations and NGOs. Home visits and group counselings should be made. And through peer support, there will be good interactions with the young people to help them kick the habit. Sports, arts and cultural activities can help our children stay away from the screen and interact meaningfully in the physical world. This can help groom their attention span and cultivate the interests and skills. Our children and adolescents are our future. We need to make sure that they grow up in a healthy manner. It has to do with their overall well-being. E-screen is not a problem that can be solved by families or schools alone. We need the efforts and support of multiple parties. The government should make reference to the international experience, and then in light of the local situation, the government should draw up proactive policies to help our next generation build a better future. Next, Mr. Zhu Guoke. President, the Department of Health published the annual health report for 2023-24. 43.3% of primary students spent 2 hours a day or above in using internet or e-screen for entertainment purposes. That's a 30% increase from the level pre-COVID. For secondary school students, the proportion raised to 80.9%. That's an increase from the 78% in the pre-COVID period. Improper use of electronic gadgets is a prevailing problem. It's common knowledge that there are adverse impacts on students physically and mentally. There are also studies on ADHD risks among young children who are obsessed with e-gadgets. It also impacts on their social skills. Now, there are health tips provided on a dedicated website of the Department of Health, but comparing to the mainland and other countries, we're not doing enough. This year, the Singaporean government promulgated guidelines to strictly restrict the screen time for children. Comparing to our level, for children between 3 and 6, after school, they can only use gadgets for 1 hour. For those 7 to 12 years old, at most 2 hours. Now, the new rule has sparked concern among parents and schools. Our country adopts an even more rigorous regime to tackle cyber addiction. In 2023, the protection of minors on the internet legislation was passed. Service providers are required to provide mechanisms to safeguard against cyber addiction. Last year, guidelines were promulgated to require control apps to be installed on smartphones against the use of phones by minors. It is a time management app. I am the principal of a primary school. So along with members representing the education sector, I fully agree that we should tackle the issue of excessive use of internet and electronic screens by children and adolescents. We must also elicit the efforts of parents and corporations. Now, it's very common nowadays that parents tend to use gadgets as e-pacifiers. The tech companies are not doing anything to address the problem. As for adults, they don't tend to heed our advice, so there is a need to adjust the policy. President, with technological advancements, the electronic whiteboards are extensively put to use in secondary and primary schools. Electronic assessments are made. Our children go to school every day, and if there is poor contrast between the font and the background, the students will be watching several movies for one day, and that's really a great burden on their visual health. They should be required to look at distant objects on a regular basis or to just stare outside the windows. And we should limit the use of e-screens to just 15 minutes per lesson. We must not ignore the health risks. I hope that the administration will draw up responsive measures to tackle the situation both inside and outside classroom. So submit. Dr. So Chung-hung. According to statistics, 31% of students would play phone games on a continuous basis, or some students might watch videos on mobile phones for more than 5 hours. It's a serious obsession, and it's getting more serious comparing to the pre-pandemic level. According to experts, there are apparently adverse impacts on the physical well-being of our children. Suicidal risks would also increase. It is expected that many young people, upon reaching the age of 40, will experience detachment of the retina or degenerative macular or macular degeneration like a 70-year-old. This situation is extremely worrying. There is a prevailing obsession of the internet by students today. The government must look at the issue squarely. The government should step up publicity and join hands with the education sector to curb the obsession. I fully agree with Mr. Holden Chow's motion and other members' amendments. According to medical research, adolescents have high reliance on e-screen. This will eventually turn into addiction. The long-term addiction will cause health risks. It impedes sleep and social time. It also triggers the onset of depression and even suicide. It seriously impacts on the physical well-being and academic development of the students. It will also undermine family relationships. Hong Kong is a highly digitalized city, so these risks are even more apparent. It is imminent that we exercise control and regulation for the sake of our next generation. Now, I think the government should bear responsibility and formulate cross-departmental policies on an evidence empirical basis to help build good habits among students. The government is not doing enough in terms of publicity. Schools and families are not joining hands in tackling the problem. The government must set up a steering committee comprising representatives from the education, healthcare, and leisure and cultural services department so that resources can be put in to increase the efforts. A publicity program should be rolled out. There should also be a 3-tier support mechanism involving school campuses, families, and the community to help parents establish a reasonable time frame for using screen e-products at home. The schools should also roll out thematic learning activities to raise the awareness on issues such as addiction and cyberbullying. Point number 3, in order to help students kick this habit, we must give them quality alternatives. Apart from running high-quality extracurricular activities to promote sports, arts, and social services, innovative activities tailored to the needs of students should also be developed. For example, innovation in sports competitions and inter-school drone competitions, etc. Now, President, the government must not underestimate the harm of excessive use of internet among students, because this harm may impact on the overall development of the next generation. Apart from laying down policy objectives, the government should also establish effective monitoring mechanism to ensure physical and mental well-being of our next generation. So submit.
Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, President. For sure, I support Mr. Holden Chow's motion on addressing the excessive use of internet and electronic screen products by children and adolescents. I like the word address. Mr. Holden Chow didn't use the word contain. He understands that we cannot contain the situation or the problem. We are simply addressing the situation. Some people aren't aware that they have actually got addicted to the phenomenon. We should have the HYAB and the Education Bureau on top of the Health Bureau with us today. They need to know what they can do within their purview. Like Mr. Adrian Ho said just now, when we were young, we were told not to watch too much TV. But a lot of adults nowadays play mobile phones or electronic products when they are dining. I'd like to share with you, in India, someone called Gandhi. Whatever he says, we believe in him. Someone says, well, my child always eats sweets, that's why he or she has tooth decay. Well, I cannot help you, Mr. Gandhi said. Just leave your phone number. A few days later, Gandhi went to the parent, asking the parent to ask the child or children not to eat any more sweets. Gandhi said, well, because I myself like eating sweets as well. I have to persuade myself not to eat sweets before I can convince somebody else not to do so. When we adults keep telling our children not to do so, can parents lead by example? Sometimes we give electronic products to children because we are afraid that they might disturb others. Or adults chat with one another and then adults give electronic products to the children so that they will stay quiet. The word address is used to good effect. It is important to address the situation. I'd like to ask the Health Bureau, are you seeing this phenomenon as a disease that might be spread? Is it seen as a communicable disease? In the world of adults, we know we cannot ask children not to use electronic products just by asking them not to. It is not the case that the education system of mainland China is better than ours. But the playgrounds in mainland China are oftentimes packed with people. A lot of people go for strolls. They have morning exercises, workouts before having lessons. Or they dance together before classes. But in Hong Kong, we don't have such habits. In other words, a lot of people either use their electronic products or do homework, but then anyway they have to use their electronic products. When we ask people not to use electronic products for a prolonged period of time, we need to think how this can materialize. Probably we may ask children to do more sports, to have more physical activities. So not just 1 to 2 PE lessons every week. They need to spend 15 minutes or so every day. They need to spend more time on physical activities before having classes. A simple question: what are libraries for? A lot of people go to libraries to enjoy air conditioning. That's why members were shocked when the administration asked us to greenlight projects to renovate libraries. I now read physical books, paper books. There are 2 at my bedside table. I believe the Education Bureau needs to do more so that we can address the situation. Thank you, President. Professor Lau Chi-Pang. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. Holden Chow's motion on addressing the excessive use of internet and electronic screen products by children and adolescents. I also speak in support of the amendments. I read the motion in detail. That is because it is written by Mr. Holden Chow, a lawyer. There are some key words, one of which is excessive. The purpose of the motion is to use internet and electronic screen products healthily and properly, and the focus is on adolescents and children. I've heard many members, and I found something interesting. Mr. Adrian Ho always watched television when he was young. That's why he was scolded. What is Mr. Adrian Ho like today? He is a member of the Legislative Council of the Hong Kong SAR government. He has good achievements. Just now, Mr. Ho spoke. He said he reads paper books. He doesn't use electronic screen products. But when we were young, we were told not to lie down while reading books. That will affect our vision. Dr. Dennis Lam hasn't yet spoken. He's an ophthalmologist. It is good that we have Dr. Dennis Lam to speak last. Dr. Lam will definitely share with us from his professional perspective. From my perspective, however, when I read books or watch TV, I needed to put on glasses, and my prescription had been staying the same since I was young. Back then, I hadn't yet had a computer. Nowadays, I use my mobile phone. If I didn't have my mobile phone for a day, I couldn't focus. But my prescription has all along stayed the same since I was in P5 or P6. I work with words. I had read a lot of documents, but then I can still stand in front of you and I can speak to you. So how can we enable children and adolescents to properly use internet and electronic screen products? We talk about negative reinforcement. That means when children have already used 1 hour and 15 minutes, I'm spending 1 hour and 15 minutes on these products, then you only have 5 more minutes. Especially for the traditional Chinese medicine field, all of us differ in terms of physical health. Take my mobile phone as an example. It's not poison, it's not space oil. But then we still speak very highly of our mobile phone because it comes in very handy. If I didn't have my mobile phone with me, please forgive me, pardon me. Probably I couldn't focus at meetings. We should start with kindergarten education. Teachers should teach teenagers, young people, how to use mobile phone. Teachers should teach them how to access useful information on mobile phones. Children and adolescents shouldn't be allowed to play video games on their mobile phones. They need to learn how to capitalize on this convenient tool. Then we don't have to worry that their vision will be impaired because of the excessive use of the internet and electronic screen products. I so submit. Thank you, President. Dr. Dennis Lam. Thank you. The organization I serve provide ophthalmological services. I so declare. Just now, Professor Lau mentioned that he always need to read documents and he works with words. True, when a child has some excessive use of his or her vision, then the vision will be impaired. And I have to remind Professor Lau, please, you really need to protect your eyes well. That will do you no harm but good. In this day and age, a lot of people spend much more time on internet and electronic screen products. According to the WHO, 2.6 billion people have myopia, and by 2030 the figure will jump to $3.4 billion. The spike in the number of people with myopia is alarming, and it has already become a global trend. Someone is born with myopia, but then there are also daily factors that affect our vision. We are all Chinese, but then for people living in the suburbs and for people living in the urban area, the ratio of people with myopia differs. That could be very different. We can, however, prevent myopia. It's not just about whether we put on glasses or not. When myopia is serious, then that will increase the risk of blindness, for example, macular degeneration and so on. Serious myopia will lead to macular degeneration. A lack of rest is also a major contributor to myopia. According to the Student Health Service of the DOH, over 40% of primary school students spend at least 2 hours on electronic screen products for recreational purposes. For P6 students, about 53.8% wear glasses. As for secondary school students, the figure is as high as 80%. For children and adolescents with myopia, there is an upward trend for people with serious myopia. As for the age of children suffering from myopia, it is becoming more and more serious. It means younger children started to have myopia at a young age, and that has a lot to do with the excessive use of the internet. Drama Network Open studies point out that 1 more hour of screen time will increase the risk of myopia by 21%. The situation in the mainland is comparable to that in Hong Kong. That's why the administration attaches a lot of importance to myopia control. In 2021, the Ministry of Education led a total of 15 departments to publish a document on myopia control and prevention for children and adolescents. Vision health, vision education, these are some of the examples. For toddlers between the age of 0 and 3, they are best to avoid any contact with electronic products. For those between the age of 3 and 6, they should refrain from using electronic products as far as possible as well. The earlier children are exposed to electronic products, the more likely they will suffer from myopia. I believe we need to publish a guidelines on the use of electronic products. An average of half an hour to 1 hour of physical activity will effectively reduce the likelihood of suffering from myopia. There should also be regular breaks for eyes. You need to see afar for 30 seconds after reading words very closely for 30 minutes. Medical technologies are very important. There are OK lenses. There are also eye drops. All these technologies are very helpful.
主席，呢個
Dr. Junius Ho. This is a very meaningful topic. It's not just about children and adolescents. Dr. Dennis Lam just gave us a very detailed and professional analysis. He also recommends guidelines. E-screen is nothing but the means. It affects your eye health, your visual acuity, and vision in general. However, the bigger problem lies with problematic websites on the internet. They pollute our mind. So it's not just about eye health, it's about our mental well-being. Now, according to the Hong Kong National Security Law and the Safeguarding National Security Ordinance, Articles 9 and 10, we have this legal responsibility. It's for the SAR government to provide steer. Schools, NGOs, internet, and media are covered, especially internet. Rigorous supervision should be exercised. Today's topic is on smartphones. Now, when Dr. Lam talked about protecting our eyes, I had to take off my glasses and rub my eyes. I spent about 9 hours a day staring at the phone screen, not 24 hours perhaps, but to me, it's a major tool. So despite negative impacts on my eye health, and I have floaters as well as macular degeneration, I understand the direct physical harm, but what I'm concerned is about things at a higher level. That is how our thinking and our mind will be affected. So we need to pay attention as we use computers, whether our minds will be polluted. We need to make sure we're on the right trajectory. Especially when nowadays we talk about the soft resistance stemming from the turbulence in 2019. On the electronic media, we find trolling, cyberbullying, and various problems. So when children and adolescents use internet and e-screen products excessively, of course, their eyes will directly bear the brunt, but more importantly, their minds will be polluted. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have spoke out of step, but I just want to make my point. Mr. Paul Chair. President, members have spoken on the harms brought about by excessive use of internet and electronic screen products by children and adolescents. But I'd like to focus on extracurricular activities and sports. Adults, children, CHOW members, students. There is just so much time we have in a day. As we spend time looking at the screen, we have less time for other things. Apart from affecting our visual health, the more important impact is that we have less time for extracurricular activities and sports, which are crucial for our adolescents in the stage of development. Of course, we have people who are very balanced, they enjoy good health, and I'm very grateful to my parents. When I was young, I had the opportunity to take part in uniformed group activities. I was a Boy Scout. I started from young all the way to secondary school, and even after I left school, I came back to help them. I also took part in competitive sports, and I thank my alma mater, the YN College, for the excellent environment. There was a tennis court, and there were coaches in schools. Every day after school, we received coaching on tennis, and I was sent to take part in competitions. Now, I'd like to go back to the Boy Scout activity. Every year, I try to spare time to attend the general meeting. The general meeting takes place in November. The chief executive, in theory, is so-called the chief scout of the Boy Scouts. That is the highest in command. Well, I don't think this receives a lot of attention, but uniform groups is very important because the Boy Scouts are required to give an oath or take an oath. They must be responsible for their country. They must have faith in God, so on and so forth. So when you talk about national security education, I don't think we need to do much beyond cultivating our young people. That's the kind of resistance against, a tactic against self-resistance. There are different doctrines. We need to be able to overcome challenges. We must not be selfish. We must not be afraid of failure. We need to honor the team spirit. We need to help each other out. We take part in competitions. We undergo training, and more importantly, we need to abide by the spirit of sportsmanship. Don't be afraid of losing, so that our young people will not have suicidal tendencies. Nowadays, because of too much time spent on the internet, young people are not as healthy. Not only are their high health affected, their sedentary lifestyle likewise is hazardous. Our police are not as strong-built and muscular and masculine as the police around the world, and that's the harm of the internet. So I support the motion and the amendments. I think we need to pay attention to the issue because we're spending too much time in front of computers and surfing the internet. We're not having discipline. We need to spend more time to play sports.
Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Holden Chow, you may now speak on the amendments. Thank you, President. First of all, I thank three members for their amendments, which have enriched my original motion. Dr. Johnny NG referred to the fact that some gaming companies need to take the initiative as well. I believe this is very right. There should be pop-up alerts and reminders. Mr. McCulloch mentioned comprehensive studies to provide the public with comprehensive information. Mr. Chen Kim-po's amendments are about learning at school. How much time should be spent on electronic screen products? Should we review the situation that is working as source? Mr. Chen mentioned the participation of parents as well. I understand they definitely need to lead by example. We're living in a modern-day society. We aren't living in the Stone Age. Mr. Chen mentioned parents need to lead by example. The fact that I proposed a no electronic screen products day for students is just a starting point. It serves to remind children and adolescents of the importance of this issue. The Department of Health guideline of 2 hours per day, I believe more members have already heard about this guideline, so I hope that this will help us address the problem. Thank you.
Undersecretary for Health. President, I thank Mr. Holden Chow again for moving the motion, as well as Mr. Johnny NG, Mr. Michael Look, and Mr. Chen Kim-po for their amendments. I also thank 32 members who have spoken today. excessive use of internet and electronic screen products is not the issue facing Hong Kong alone. This is in fact a common problem around the world. As mentioned by other members, social, technological, economic developments are in conflict with physical and mental well-being. So we need to consider balancing the risks. On screen time and the use of electronic products around the world, guidelines are promulgated to educate the public, parents, and in particular young people. For particular products such as social media platforms and online gaming, some countries might adopt a more heavy-handed approach. For example, Online Safety Amendment Social Media Minimum Age Act 2 2024 in Australia prevents minors below the age of 16 from using social media accounts. In Korea, in 2011, a piece of legislation was passed. Minors below the age of 16 must not log onto an online gaming platform to play games between midnight and 6 a.m. 10 years later in 2021, because of backlash in the community, this piece of legislation was scrapped. Mr. Tang Fei talked about restrictions on screen time at schools. Now, for the majority of guidelines, such as the ones in Singapore, the restriction only applies to e-screen products for entertainment purposes. Some members expressed concern about the rising trend in the overall time that students spend using the internet and e-screen products. They've called on the society to raise awareness of the excessive use of internet and e-screen products. In fact, in today's digital world, children are exposed to the internet and e-screen products from a young age. They use them for learning, communication, and entertainment throughout their growth. We must therefore ensure that the public understand the health risks associated with the excessive use, as well as the knowledge about healthy usage. In my opening remarks, I detailed the government's work in this area, including health advice for children of different ages and different stages of development, as well as a series of measures to promote the healthy use of the internet and e-screen products. It is important to quantify screen time, but quality is likewise important. Mr. Paul Chair and Ms. Rebecca Chan just now talked about a greater variety of extracurricular activities for the development of students. This can provide incentive to pull them away from staring at screens. Now, on this note, I'd like to talk about the efforts made by the Education Bureau and the Department of Health. One of the 7 learning objectives is to help students establish a healthy lifestyle. Learning elements in this regard have been integrated into the subjects. Now, sports, physical education is also one of the 8 learning areas in school. Schools are required to develop students' physical skills and enhance their physical fitness, deepen their understanding of sports, and cultivate positive values and attitudes to maintain a strong physique. In 2023-24, the Education Bureau disbursed a one-off grant of $150,000 to help build this culture of sports in campuses, so that schools can implement the recommendation of 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activities daily on average. Now, I mentioned the MVPA 60, moderate to vigorous physical activities of 60 minutes a day, to help students establish a habit of regular physical activity and lifestyle. On updating the guidelines, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, the Department of Health has been following international guidelines and reviewing the health advice on the use of internet and e-screen products. Starting from 2014, we on a regular basis reviewed the international standards. Now, it's been 10 years since the promulgation, and we have never updated the guidelines. That's because the international guidelines have stayed the same. For those below the age of 12, we don't recommend any use at all. For those between 2 and 5 for entertainment purpose, the screen time should be 1 hour. For 6 to 12, 2 hours. And that's roughly the same as the guidelines promulgated by Singapore and in Singapore and the UK. The Advisory Committee on Mental Health discussed at length about the harms of excessive use of internet and e-screen on children and adolescents. The Department of Health is ready to re-establish the advisory group on the health effects of internet and e-screen products use, so that a comprehensive review can be undertaken on the use of internet, e-screen, including social media, and their impact on the mental health of students, so that we can update the health advice in a timely manner. Technological advancements are taking place very rapidly, and it reshapes every aspect of our lives and our habits. Whilst we enjoy the efficiency, comfort, and convenience brought by the internet and technological advancements, when we talk about supporting big data, artificial intelligence, going digital, we must at the same time remain vigilant and recognize the potential risks and concerns. Children and adolescents are the future of society. The government attaches great importance on their physical and mental health and well-being. We will work closely with all sectors of the community, especially parents, to assist children and adolescents in cultivating the habit of using internet and e-screen products correctly and establishing a healthy lifestyle. My colleagues in the Education Bureau and other policy bureaus would like to thank members for their attention to the issue once again.
修正案。
I now call upon Dr. Johnny Ng to move an amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose the question to you that Dr. Johnny Ng's amendment be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against? I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Michael Look, as the previous amendment has been passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I now propose the question to you that Mr. Michael Look's further amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Chen Kim-por, as the previous amendments have been passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Chen Kim-por's further amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Holden CHOW, you still have 48 seconds to reply, then the debate will come to a close. I thank 35 members who have spoken on this issue. I thank you for expressing your valuable views. Recently, I brought my son to play more sports games. I want him to have more physical activities. I want to raise public awareness about this issue. I urge members to support my motion. I now put the question to you that Mr. Holden CHOW's motion as amended by Dr. Johnny Ng, Mr. McCulloch, and Mr. Chen Kim-por be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion as amended passed. I now adjourn the council until 11 a.m. on the 2nd of July, Wednesday.